Karsh Kale, your mentor, Tabla maestro Zakir Hussain passed away at the age of 73 in San Francisco due to heart-related ailments. You, of course, are away from home. Must be a tough time for you. But today, how do you remember him?
It's a flood of memories. He's been a part of my life since I was a child. He was the doorway to Indian classical music. I think ever since I had seen him perform as a child at 6 years old, I saw him at Columbia University perform with Ustad Sultan Khan and his father, Ustad Al-Araka. I was hooked, and I've been on that set me on a path that I remain on today. Over the years, I got to work with him on a few different projects, including a band called Tabla Beat Science, where we toured the world and did some incredible concerts together. And for me, this was, I wouldn't have dreamed that would have the opportunity to be able to tour with Zakir Bhai and learn from him and have him be such a huge influence on what I was doing and what I still continue to do.
Like you said, Tabla Beat Science. That was, of course, the musical group founded in 1999 by Zakir Hussain and Bill Leswell.
Yes.
And you joined the group with Laswell, Zakir Hussain, Trilok Gurtu, and Talvin Singh.
Yeah. So at first thing, it was a compilation album so Zakir Bhai and Bill Laswell were working on a project, and I was also working with Bill, and Talvin was working with Bill, and Bill had already spent years working with Trilok. So he asked us all to contribute to this project, which at that time was only a compilation of different tracks that we were exploring the meeting place between tabla and electronic beats and kind of the things that were happening in electronica at the time. And then about a year after the album came out, an opportunity to perform came, and so then we created a band. And by the time the band kind of came together, it was Zakir Bhai, of course, on tabla, and Bill Laswell on bass, and myself on drum kit and electric tabla. And then we had guests like DJ Disc and the Medieval Pundits, and Ethiopian singer named Gigi, and of course Ustad Sultan Khan. So that became, and then later on we had Salim Merchant and Ganesh Iyer and many guests like Hari Prasad Chaurasia and even Serge Tankian from the System of a Down, and we've had many guest artists from all walks of music. So it was quite an adventure. And for me as a young musician, I was the young one in the band. It was like crash course in touring the world with the greatest, and the do's and don'ts I got to learn firsthand.
But what was your experience of jamming with him? What are some of the big learnings today when you look back?
Well, I really didn't know what to expect when we got together. We had, I think, one rehearsal before our first concert. The first concert was in San Francisco at Stern Grove, which is an open air amphitheater, literally in the middle of a forest. And 14,000 people had come for the show. And I didn't have I didn't know how this show was going to go because I had never played with Zakir Bhai before. Then this whole group had kind of been just put together very kind of last minute. And so Zakir Bhai kind of took me aside because, of course, as growing up, every time I'd see him, I would greet him by touching his feet, as we do, as his students, as his admirers. And he, at one point, stopped me and picked me up, and he said, "From now on, you look me in the eye, because when we get on stage, we are all equals, and we have to look each other in the eye if we're going to take people on this journey." And that was kind of the, from the moment he said that, that was how these shows would unfold. Is I would have, like a hawk, have my eyes on his fingers, on his feet, on his eyes, and he would be, he would make sure that he was sitting in a place where he could see everybody and have eye contact so that we could communicate. And for me, that was the kind of the learning for me to become a band leader and how to position yourself and how to elevate an entire ensemble of musicians. Not only there to, he wasn't just there to show everybody what an incredible musician Zakir Hussain was. Every group that he plays with, whether it was Tabla Beat Science or Masters of Percussion or with Bella Fleck or a classical concert, with a vocalist or with someone like Shivji or Hariji, he was always there to elevate the artist that he was playing with. And that was something that I got to not only, I would always see that from the audience perspective, but I got to understand firsthand how he was doing that on stage, and the micro gestures and the way that he would subtly lead us somewhere where we would all of a sudden play a Chatkara together, with all these disparate instruments, because of the way that he would set it up, the way that he would lead us there.
He of course is a legend, but he managed to blend well with the contemporary artists like you and many others.
Mm.
He and his work surely was made for all ages.
Yeah.
Did you sense that while working with him?
Yeah, I'm there's a thing about like fusion artists, which oftentimes people have they have a commentary about appropriating. Cultural appropriation is always a part of the conversation, and Zakir Bhai was not somebody who blended with other artists. He immersed himself in all of the different worlds that he worked within. So when he was doing an album like the albums he was doing with Mickey Hart, he was immersed in the Latin rhythms and the African rhythms, and and the culture, and he would taste the food. He would understand the language. He was learning the local languages. He was, so that when he was speaking on his instrument, he was speaking multiple languages. He wasn't only speaking from the Punjab Gharana perspective, and then, hoping that kind of blends well with the different styles of the world. That was the big difference between what Zakir Bhai, was doing, and, how he kind of elevated the whole idea of fusion music, because he was wherever he, ever since he started playing with Shakti, he was already immersed in rock music. He was listening to the Doors and the Beatles, and, with George Harrison, and was listening to jazz, so he was understanding that when he's playing for different audiences, he needs to make them feel like this is their music, and, not as a representative of Indian music, but as a voice, a global voice of world music.
But how was he as in person? Was he the perfect family man? How was he as a father? Was there a time where you met his family as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was something that I got a lot of. I there was a lot of influence that came from spending time with him and just seeing what type of family man he is. He really is a family man, and I got to see firsthand how much his wonderful wife Tony and his daughters Anissa and Isabel, how much they just adore him, and how what a lovely childlike kind of relationship that he kept with his family. And even though all over the world people would take planes and trains to come and touch his feet, but there was such a humility and kind of humor to his relationship with his family, and really he's such a grounded and humble human being that even in the midst of all of this adulation, and he's always put on such a pedestal that he immediately steps down and is there. I mean, to see like in these last years, so many of his posts were about the time he was spending with his granddaughter, and you see the look on his face. He's just, that's nothing brings him more joy than for him to be with his family. And so yeah, that was and I right at that time I had just become a father, so I had my daughter, who was was literally the first show that we ever did. My partner was pregnant at the time, and then a couple of years later we played at the Barbican Center, and same thing. There was a line outside backstage of people that were waiting to meet him and do namaskar and get his blessing, and he was on his hands and knees, doing baby talk with my daughter and playing with her, and just that's the man he is. Is first and foremost a family man.
What a fairy tale kind of love story he had. I remember reading the book of Nasreen Muni Kabir, in which there's a chapter where he actually found the missing eye lens for his then girlfriend,
Yeah.
his wife, and what a lovely story that was. But what was his gift according to you, Karsh?
His true gift, I think, I mean, he many gifts. I mean, to me, he was like a prophet, and very rarely in our existence do we meet people like that, But I think his real gift was fearlessness of the unknown. He would explore, and he would go to places that most people would be apprehensive to go to explore, to go to. And not just, I mean, and that shows even in his choice to, against his family's wishes, marry this Italian woman, and go and move to San Francisco and teach an entirely new culture, the music that he brought to, and also learn from them as well, and create this world, this world citizen character which he brought to the world. I think that was more than anything. I mean, of course, he is one of the greatest, to ever touch tabla. And, to me, I know that he's such a great artist that he just happens to be a tabla player. But anything he would have chosen to do, he would have, taken it to dizzying heights. But I think his real gift was his ability to bring people together and to make people feel like we're all one global family. And not many people have that, ability to make people feel like that. And Zakir Bhai certainly has that gift.
I know during COVID he was organizing his concerts, and a lot of people came in droves to attend that music shows across America. If you remember, you were also in New York that time.
Yeah.
And finally, Kash, how do you see the legacy that he's left behind?
Well, I mean, there are many lanes to that question. I mean, of course, as a Indian classical musician, there's, perhaps Ravi Shankar and a few others that have had the kind of impact on the world and brought such an incredible audience to this form of music. And anywhere that he plays on the planet, he would, not only would he pack the place, but he would leave people in awe of his playing, and of course the style of music that he was representing. So just as an Indian classical musician, that is something that he has done for the art form, and has opened the doors for generations of musicians to be able to have careers in this, and also as a tabla player, before him. I mean, I think he saw how his father's generation would struggle with, getting the respect as an accompanist, as a tabla player. His father was one of the first to get that kind of respect because of where Ravi Shankar and Vilayat Khan and people like Ali Akbar Khan, how much respect they had for these players. But then Zakir Bhai just took that to another place. He added a class, and he just took that level of respect that the world now sees tabla players in a completely different way, and that is due to the work of Zakir.